Welcome everybody to Tiger Claw Radio, episode 180. This is your host, Critical Failure. This week, 2 huge releases on Steam. Also, I got an interesting question for those of you who listen while you're driving to work. Alright, this is episode 180. Don't forget to check us out on thenextround.net. Right now in the next round, we've got a review for Island Racer from Retro Kaiser, which just came out. Which he's uploading to his VidMe channel, which is neat. I'm enjoying the VidMe. I've also got a review from Ubermosh, the PC game, which was posted by Swingle, Alex Swingle. I'm actually looking forward to reading that. I haven't. His reviews are spread out quite a bit, so cool to see him posting. Lots of new stuff on the next round. Go check it out. In the meantime, let's kick things off with a chip tune to help you get to work, boys and girls. This is the final chiptune I have from Jar over at chipmusic.org, and the link's going to be provided in the description if you're watching this on YouTube. This was a guy who, I assume it's a guy, I don't really know. This was an artist over at chipmusic.org who posted a song called Commodorable, and it was really, really good. I found all the other tracks by said artist. There were not many of them. This is the final one, so enjoy it. Hope you guys are having a good day. Thanks for listening to Tiger Claw Radio. that is quality chiptune. I would say if I could be so bold, heavily influenced by Anamanaguchi. It's right there. Konami expansion sound chip over electric guitars with this poppy, real poppy guitar, but really good sound. Something I very much enjoy. All right, so we're gonna go direct to the Vancast, which is something I derped on last week. Here's the thing about the Vancast. When I've had enough sleep, I can find an energy on the Vancast that I can't find in the studio, and it's just one of the things I think make it worth doing. And I feel like I've got a pretty strong one this week. So let's go to the Vancast. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio, episode 180. All right, we're rolling. And I got parking brake off. What's going on, everybody? This is Critical Failure. You're listening to the Vancast on Tiger Claw Radio. Are you mersed yet? It is a cloudy day outside, man. Yesterday was the nicest day we'd seen in a long time. It was warm, the sun was out, and the kids were outside playing when I got home from work, and the sprinkler and stuff. It was cool, man. I was digging it. It could be again, but I haven't seen a weather report, but you know how these things go. I just pulled out of the driveway, and it is cloudy. It's a cloudy one. I'm gonna talk some video games this morning, which can be difficult to talk about video games. I'm gonna tell you why. I accepted a review copy of Franchise Hockey Manager 3. Now, even if you're not interested in that game, bear with me for a second. I just want to illustrate how much time I have. On 4 different occasions since I've accepted that review copy, I've sat down and I played the game as long as I had to play video games. On 4 different occasions I've done this. I've only clocked 3 hours into the game. So that'll give you an idea of how little time I really have to do these things. So, a little bit of news. Last night, I popped on Steam to check it out. Bayonetta had been released in full on Steam. The 2013 original Bayonetta is now on Steam. Not only did they put it out on Steam, but the ticket price is $20, regular price, $19.99. And I gotta say, I'm shocked. Clicking over to the top selling games, you can see that Bayonetta had become the #1 selling game, at least last night. I haven't checked this morning, and by the time you hear this, it'll be several days ago. But man, I gotta say, that was an exclusive, right? That was actually, Bayonetta was like one of these keystone titles when you talk about the problems of exclusivity, because it came out on PS3, right? And then when Bayonetta 2 came out, it was like only on Wii U, and even the people who didn't want a Wii U at all were like, wish Bayonetta 2 came out on my system. So, I mean, I talked about this last time, how I'd played Bayonetta in the past, and it didn't really strike a chord with me. I would be willing to try it again, I think, on PC in my native land. The only thing is, it's not on sale. I mean, sometimes when games first get released, there's a small launch sale on Steam. Nothing big, but they'll give you like 10% off or something. Out of the Park Baseball does that. I mean, Franchise Hockey Manager, all those games, they do that. But, I mean, we don't have that here. And since I do not have time to play it right now, there's no point in just dropping the $20 regular price and having it get backlogged. I think the only reason why I would do that is if for some reason I thought it was going to be removed from Steam. But Bayonetta isn't the only game that came out last time. There was... Hang on a second. We're going to do another mid-broadcast McDonald's stop so that you can be fully immersed. Fully immersed! Fully immersed! Alright. Maybe I should just let it run while I'm ordering. No, that's a terrible idea. Let's not do that. The game I was thinking of during the Vancast was called Planescape Torment. Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition came out on Steam. But I went the entirety of the Vancast and that name never came to me. Alright guys, back to the Vancast. I just pulled up to a stoplight behind what looks like a 1960s Cadillac with historic tags, and it has this sort of cream tooth color, not white, but like the white of teeth that haven't been brushed in 2 weeks. But apart from the weird paint color, it's a beautiful car, and I'm not much of a car guy. But all right, I don't know how I'm gonna do this, talking to my cell phone and drive and eat McDonald's. But you know what? I'm willing to risk my life to try. Alright. So, back to the other game that came out on Steam. This is not a cliffhanger. I don't remember what the name of it was, and I'll probably say that at the top of the show, so by the time you're listening to this, you've already heard it. But it's one of those games that came out around the time of like Baldur's Gate, which I can't remember the other games in that series either. Wow. I know there's like 3 of them or something. There was one that came out after, not Baldur's Gate 2, but there was another game almost exactly like it. I don't know. Dorobka, leave a comment and tell me what it is, man, because I forget. It's in GOG.com. They sell these games in a pack all the time. I don't know. They're all getting enhanced editions. And like, here again, it's just like with the NES Mini. 5 years ago, I'd have been all over this. But I gotta say, when Baldur's Gate released its DLC, they derped it so hard, so much so that they actually ruined my interest in enhanced versions of these games altogether. These are like the first games ever that I'm like, you know what? I got it on GOG. I'm good. You know, this is after years of being that guy that's like, I got it on GOG, but if I don't get it on Steam, I'm not logging my time. Now all my pre-Galaxy time is just gone out the window. However, that did come out on Steam, whatever that game is called. And so we returned to the car where I'm driving to work. And in order to talk about video games, I can no longer talk about what I've played. I can no longer talk about the experiences I've had, unless you want to hear about Franchise Hockey Manager 3. But the question I have to ask now is, what would I be playing if I were home? And I was asking myself this question, if I wasn't driving to work right now, what would I be sitting down to play? When I was getting my suit on, getting my lunch together, and the answer kept changing. So I don't really know. I've had this idea kicking around in my head to do a little video on Bubble Bobble. So I've kind of had the bug to play Bubble Bobble, but I've been thinking about that for like 3 or 4 days now, and I haven't touched the game. So we shall see if anything comes of that. My favorite way to play Bubble Bobble is on the Wii. I never got a hold of it on the NES. I know it's one of those classic NES games, and that's how I was first introduced to it. But I got an arcade stick for my Wii that doesn't get a whole lot of play, and it's a beautiful stick. And I think it beats out my NES arcade stick. You know, the NES Advantage. It's the NES Advantage versus like a legit fight stick. The Advantage, if you remember, it doesn't have any clacky switches on the stick portion of it. I mean, if you put it next to like a modern fight stick, there's a lot. I mean, it's built differently, and no disrespect to the Advantage, it was what was available at the time. But if I'm gonna play an arcade game and I have a choice, then I would go with something a little bit more modern. Especially since the Wii version of Bubble Bobble, for all my disappointments with that game, they did a really good job porting the original Bubble Bobble to the Wii. It's a good game. That was a game that was on the forefront of microtransactions. That was right at the time where modern microtransactions were first being rolled out. It wasn't the first game to do it, but it was probably the second game I came across. The first game I came across to introduce microtransactions was Mega Man 9. The first of the 2 modern Mega Man throwback games. Hang on a second. Let's have a sip of this coffee. Get immersed with me while I drink coffee in the air. Oh shit, that is hot. Whoops. Cussed in the air. Sorry. So yeah, they added I remember being frustrated at the time for two reasons. One, because they added 2 expert modes that you had to buy separately. So early microtransactions. And also because I had just gotten my Wii, and my friend had one, and I wanted to play a game online. I was like just getting into Bubble Bobble. We had like a local Bubble Bobble match that was really fun. So I bought that game, and he bought it too, and there was no online multiplayer. And Wii, if you remember, the Wii back in the day, it did have online multiplayer, but it was the pioneer of the friend code system. So it was really convoluted to play. All right, we're going to do more Vancasts in a minute, but I'm going to eat, all right? As soon as I can figure out how to turn this thing off. All right, back on the road. I got a sausage egg McMuffin in my belly. I got hot coffee in my side, and I've now safely merged on the highway. I did that off the phone too. Don't mess around with your phone while you're driving, kids. At least as little as possible. I'm now using a speaker device, and therefore it's still legal. You're allowed to do hands-free talking. But I'm on the highway right now, and it's 6:40 in the morning, and it's at this point where the highway that I'm on, this particular road, is going to be gridlock traffic in another maybe 20 minutes, and everybody around me knows it. We're all commuting, so everybody's driving like maybe 10 feet off of each other's bumper, but we're still going 60 miles an hour. And it is so dangerous. Oh my gosh. Like, if I went back into the newspaper archives, I could read some stories. The reality is, people die out here on this road all the time. The death on this road is out of this world. At least for a peacetime United States. Yeah. So, make sure you don't mess with your phone when you're on the highway, kids. It's a good way to not make it home safe. So we were talking about the game I would play if I had the time, and what I came up with was Bubble Bobble. But I think the last game I can remember playing that was like before I started getting headfirst into this out of the park baseball thing again was I had started digging into the Quake expansion packs. And I think this was long enough ago that I probably spoke about this on the air already. But there are two expansion packs that are available on Quake for Quake on like Steam, and I can't even remember the names of them off the top of my head. It's like Scourge of Armageddon and something else. I don't know. I've had them for a long time. When I was getting into Steam, that year when QuakeCon came around, I picked up the Quake Complete Pack, which was everything that had the Quake name on it except for Quake 4. So not really complete. Anyway, I picked that up, and that had these expansion packs in them, so I've been sitting on them that long. And this was before I knew how source ports worked. So, in order to play an expansion pack at the time, I thought it was still like you had to kind of do the vanilla thing, but no. I installed a source port, Quake Spasm for Quake on my laptop. I did this a long time ago, and I replaced the executable file with, I think it's WinQuake is what Steam defaults to. So when you try and launch Quake from Steam, it will launch the source port and not the original Quake. Well, with these expansion packs, all it does is put the folder inside the Quake folder and then run them that way. So those now, as it turns out, by default, load up the source port, which is pretty cool. So I gave those a try, and those are pretty cool. There's some really neat architecture in the levels, which is one of the things I always liked about Quake that made it stand apart from a lot of the other first-person shooters at the time, was there's such a focus on graphics, but graphics can be a different thing. I mean, Quake had this black and brown color palette, but it was really the architecture of the levels. They really went for this H.P. Lovecraft kind of feel, which is Lovecraftian, whatever. That's what I hear people say all the time when they talk about Quake, is how it felt like H.P. Lovecraft. Very gothic church architecture in the level design, which I think is one of the things that gives it its longevity, which gives vanilla Quake its longevity. I mean, if setting aside the mods, was this architecture being seen just coming out of like Doom and the Ken Silverman's build engine, when there was no sector over sector even. This was a game that knew sector over sector was brand new technology, so they really took advantage of it. There's a lot of vertical space usage in Quake, and I dig it, man. I think it stands up. So if I were to go home and all the kids were gone and all my responsibilities were gone, what would I do? Probably do dishes and laundry. But if I didn't have that to do, probably be either one of the Quake expansion packs or Bubble Bobble. Which reminds me, I was going somewhere with the Quake thing. If you go to, I was on eBay looking around, and what I was trying to find was unofficial Quake expansions, which seems silly now because you can just go to a download site, and it's not quite like it was before. Quake Planet is gone because the whole GameSpy Planet network has gone down. But there are still existing a lot of good mods out there for Quake that you can just go and download for free. But there were CDs that were sold where basically they just had some mod collections, that they made proprietary mods, and they sold them in CDs. One of those was a CD called Q-Zone, which is one I'm after right now, which is the dumbest name I think ever. But a little history on Q-Zone. When Doom came out, or not when it came out, maybe shortly after, I think this was Doom 2 era, a couple years after Doom, there was a CD called D-Zone. And D-Zone was important because D-Zone contained the level editing tools, and it could be purchased in a CD if you didn't have Doom. If you didn't have the internet, or the bandwidth to download, a CD's worth of data, which in those days when we all had dial-up, if you were lucky enough to have the internet, downloading a CD's worth of data would have been a really, really long time. I mean, think about it. When Napster came out, it took, on average, 30 minutes per song to download off of Napster. So all of the stuff that was contained in the D-Zone CD was a worthwhile treat at that time, even if the level design for the D-Zone levels was not quite up to par, which was how I remember it being. It had the level editor, had a bunch of levels in it. You could just get it in one box and bring it home, and that was it. D-Zone, that was a quality product and a well-known product. As it turns out, they had several others that were lesser known, and one was called Q-Zone, and it was the Quake version. Now, Quake came out in 1996. And when did Half-Life come out? I picture the Quake run from 1996 all the way up until about Half-Life came out, because I know Quake 2 came out in that time, and Quake 2 was a great game, and it had an online multiplayer scene, but it wasn't quite the same in terms of the modability and the level creation as Quake was. Durabka, bear with me, I know Quake 2 is your favorite. I'm not saying it's a bad game. I'm just saying that the original Quake... Oh, jeez, I'm going on and on about Quake again. You know what? I'm going to work. This is what I want to talk about. This is where we are right now. I'm just saying that Quake 2 didn't have the same variety and awesome stuff available when it came to total conversions, mods, that sort of stuff. As a matter of fact, PC Gamer at the time, when I was still like putting a lot of faith in PC Gamer, they ran a story about how terrible the Quake 2 crop of mods were. That is, the crop of mods after the first year. I mean, if you go now and look for Quake 2 mods, who knows what you'll find. Maybe some fanatic has made some awesome Quake 2 mod years after the fact, and I hope they have, because that would be amazing. But I would say the Quake 2, the original Quake reign was from 1996 when it came out to 1999 when, roughly circa 1999 when Half-Life came out. And I can say that pretty firmly because when Half-Life was already out and people were just starting to dig Counter-Strike, and you would go to like the GameSpy arcade and you would see like Day of Defeat servers and Counter-Strike servers and Ricochet servers, all that stuff lumped in together. Quake World was still populated by very heavily. There was a lot of people playing the original Team Fortress at the time. And this was after the This was after Team Fortress Classic had come out on the Half-Life engine. That's why I can pretty comfortably say that was the reign of the original Quake. I can't remember why I was trying to make that point, but okay, let's end with this. Quake was a good game. If I was home right now, I would probably think about playing Bubble Bobble and then actually end up playing Quake. Because it was one of those games. It was a comfortable shoe game for me. It still is. So I leave you with this question as we go back to Panzer Studios and I approach the office where I work. What's your comfortable shoe game? You know what I mean? A game where you look at your game collection and you say, I'm going to try something I don't usually play today. And then you think about it and you're like, nah, I'm going to play this game that I love so much, that I always play. What's that game? I want to know what that is. All right, guys, this is Critical Failure for a very healthy Vancast. We are shooting back to Panzer Studios.
Yeah, I know I've already said just about everything you could possibly say about Quake and Quake 2 here on Tiger Claw Radio. But that was me driving to work, and it was where I wanted my head to be just before I started my shift. And I'd just like to mention that once I got to work, I ended up having a much better morning for it. So I thought I'd mention that. There's an example of Tiger Claw Radio doing something good for me. So thanks for joining us. All right, I'm heading over to chipmusic.org right now. I'm taking a look at the let's see, the latest songs that have come out, and I've given it a couple weeks to turn over, so let's see some new stuff. There's a track called Remember Your Name from Degitix. I don't know how to pronounce the name. It's Degitx, with sort of camel casing. Anyway, the link's going to be in the description if you'd like to go get yourself a copy of the MP3. It's called Remember Your Name, Sega Genesis version, and he writes in the description my original metal song, Remember Your Name, on Sega Genesis. So it's a really good like melodic track. I have been enjoying it. All right, guys, you're listening to Tiger Claw Radio, episode 180. good track, but I gotta say, apart from the description, I don't really get heavy metal from that track. I get more of like a church bell song with guitars. But maybe that's what heavy metal is these days. I don't know. Special thanks to the patrons, Hemrock, James, Kaiser, and Sendu. If you'd like to get Tiger Claw Radio a couple days early, head over to Patreon and help keep the show on the air. So thanks very much to these four guys. Oh boy. Coffee just hit my lips for the first time this morning, and it made my eyes light up. It really does, man. It's good stuff. All right. I'm a bit tired. It is 5:29 in the morning. And last night, I was like, man, I'm staying up to play some games. Doesn't have to be long, but I'm going to do it. So I got out my arcade stick and I hooked it up to the new computer that I finished building. And it was a good time, man. I played... my best arcade stick games are not available on Linux. Like the Raiden games and Dodonpachi. Those are not available. So unless I put Windows on that computer or start messing around with the wine, I'm not going to be able to play those games, which is a bummer. But I played Cider Arcade, which I hadn't played in a long time. I also tried to play Stardust Vanguards, which looks like a cool game. But it booted up in Linux just fine, but my arcade stick wasn't working, so I was like, nah, forget that. So I guess it was mostly just Cider Arcade. And I played a little bit of Trackmania, but not much. So it felt good. It felt good to actually sit down and play some games instead of, oh, what would I play if life weren't so busy? So that was really cool. I enjoyed that. Alright guys, I think it's time for the fail bag. This is the part of the show where I go find the comments and you guys have a chance to interact with the show a little bit. This is really small. It's just me here, you know. I think the listenership is maxes out at about like 30 people or something. So I have the YouTube comments open. That's where most things come in. I'm just gonna pop over and see if anything came in on mondocoolcast.com, and it did not. All right, so we got YouTube comments. That's what we got. All right, so Super Robot Power Hour. Oh, nice. Super Robot Power Hour writes, Splatterhouse is definitely about the look and not the feel. It's indicative of the arcade games of the time trying to peacock amongst the glamour of the scene. The fighting game you described sounds a lot like the modern indie 4-player party fighter, Tower Fall, Samurai Gun, etc. The one difference being that you don't need to train out button combinations to play them. It's all about the definition of space. Yeah, Mate doesn't rock my world either, but it also doesn't kill my poor little dual-core Intel integrated graphics processor. Whereas GNOME 3 is far too taxing on my budget machine. As far as a low-end desktop environment goes, I'm satisfied with it. Whenever you get a chance, I recommend crawling through your repositories. You can find all sorts of great stuff there. And it's something I personally think is fun, is one of the fun parts of running Linux. I hope you can get your Audacity issues worked out long term. Linux has had quite the issue with audio over the years. If you do decide to go with Debian, you might have a better experience, as it favors a more thoroughly tested system configuration. The drawback is being that the software repository is usually versions behind others. You might get the stability you need and more modern software packages from something like OpenSUSE. OpenSUSE or OpenSUSE? OpenSUSE Leap. We'll say SUSE. SUSE. I don't know. How does Brian Lunduke say OpenSUSE? So you're on a dual-core Intel. Alright. I guess I've been in that boat before. and it really boils down to you don't have. You got to go with what you can. So I completely understand. As far as the repositories go, I've looked around a little bit. The Mint repositories are pretty well categorized. But that's one of those things where, like, my Mint install on my new computer is supposed to be temporary until I can get around to finding an operating system I'm more interested in. And if I spend a while going through the repositories, that might change. It might be like, now I don't want to give it up. It's also one of the things about, it's like if I started playing Minecraft on the new computer, then I would have a Minecraft map, and I wouldn't want to give it up. So I'm not quite that dedicated to this Linux Mint install. But yeah, the repositories are cool. I did think when I was hardcore about Linux Mint, I considered buying, spending like $30 and buying a local copy that has like the install USB that's like has the branded install USB, and they have one that comes with a box of like 17 DVDs or something like that. It's like a big box of DVDs, and it's the entire software repository in a box of DVDs, which I think is so hilarious. I kind of wanted it. Just in case, like, if my internet ever goes out, I'm like, I want to download something new. Because if you think about it, that's the way it used to be, man. That's the way it was for my old man. He had a big plastic filing cabinet that was full of diskettes, and that's essentially what happened. He would get these diskette magazines, 3 1/4-inch floppies that would just come with all sorts of stuff on them. And this was into the early 90s now. I'm aware the internet was around then, but it was a different thing. So those old discs were just the awesomest thing when I was a kid. So I don't know. I kind of like the idea of having some sort of modern equivalent to that. As far as what else did you mention here? Splatterhouse trying to peacock. I could see that. I could see that, especially if you look at the Splatterhouse cabinet. It's like a big bloody cabinet with a bone for a joystick. Yeah, the cabinet was really awesome to see. But I don't think I've ever seen it actually out in the wild. They don't have the Splatterhouse cab at MagFest, and they certainly didn't carry it at Disney Quest. Those are the only two places I've seen in the last, in the last 10 years, I think, that really had old arcade games. I think that about covers it. So thanks, Super Robot Power Hour, for the comment. Much appreciated, man. And then we come to Saga, who has a really short comment. Right, Splatterhouse always looked cool in the magazines, and that one time it was on GamePro TV, and I really wanted to play them when I was younger. It just never happened. Honestly, the only one I have played is Wenpaku Graffiti. I remember that Wenpaku Graffiti is the first ROM I ever saw. The first time I ever saw an NES ROM. I think I might have told this story in the last episode. But my question... I'm sorry, I know that's terrible to listen to, like a big yawn like that. I cannot describe how much I'm running on empty right now. It's Friday morning. I have less than 20 minutes before I have to start getting ready for work.
Right. So my question, based off of this, is what was GamePro TV again? I don't remember GamePro TV. I mean, I'll Google it when we're done here. Was that the show where you called in and you were supposed to somehow use like your touch tone phone and then like press the buttons on the phone, and that made the TV show like show the game in real time or something like that? So that's how you would play, and like people would like call in and play. I can't remember what the name of that show was. I hope that was it. I watched it once and somebody played the first level of Golden Axe, and I remember it being awesome because we didn't have a Sega Genesis at that time. I don't think we had a Super Nintendo either, not until later. So I remember it being pretty awesome. Was that what GamePro TV was? I don't know. Alright, boys and girls. I gotta go do my Friday at work. I'm gonna have to call it an early show this week. So let's end with a little bit of well-wishing, alright? Look, whatever it is you gotta do in the morning, don't stop doing it. Get out of bed, get your clothes on, and go do what you gotta do. Especially if you don't want to. Because that's the way you win, alright? I'm rooting for you. Don't give up no matter what. Make it a good week. I'll see you guys next Monday, okay? Play some video games for your old pal CF.